Exactly.
Let's go back to Chicago for a second. Did you ever meet Dan Rostenkowski?
Never met him, but he was certainly a fixture back in the day. Yeah.
Rostenkowski was a Democrat who got a lot of things done for the business we were working in
Yeah, he
Chicago.
did. He was a mover and a shaker.
Now
Lots of
back to
deals
the
being
point,
made.
Scott. He eventually went to prison for a couple years. It was a posh prison in Wisconsin and everything, and he
But
went to
you know what?
he went to prison on a little on something with
No,
the
no,
post
no.
office or something, right?
Yeah, no. He misappropriated the use of postage stamps
Yeah.
from his office for campaign flyers or some silly thing like. I am off the page when it comes to how I view history. For years as a kid, I thought JFK was a bad guy. You look at history and you start to take those blinders off.
I did the same thing with JFK.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, well, he's actually a really good president.
He was, actually. And it's funny because, we just grew up with labels, and I was a Republican for most of my adult life. I grew up in a household where my mom was a Democrat and my dad was a Republican. So I heard both sides. 70s, the parties were much different than they are now. But JFK was a great example of someone who was pretty much a centrist, even though he had that Democrat label. Yeah. And he got us to the moon. He had 3 years, and he did all this stuff. But at the time, because of the labels, like you were saying, I wouldn't have voted for him.
Right.
But he turned into, you look at it in retrospect, it's like, damn, I wish we had guys like that now.
I know, right? Exactly. Yeah. Well, we could get into the conspiracy theories on JFK. I always make a joke every time I tell somebody I'm watching YouTube, which is a great source of information or disinformation. I say that you're only about 3 or 4 clicks away from the Zapruder film. So if you're clicking something and you click again, and you click again, eventually it takes you down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole. So which I think is pretty funny.
All content on the Risk Reward Show is for entertainment purposes only and not to be construed as financial advice. The hosts don't know what they're talking about. Investments involve risk, so please consult a qualified professional before making decisions. You know that. Your mother told you that. Come on.
The last thing I want to ask either one of you is about George Foreman, who passed away this weekend. Did either one of you have any memorable thoughts about Foreman? This guy was a pretty dynamic person.
Mm-hmm. Other than being an absolute powerhouse of a man, what I remember about George Foreman was his high spirit. He was so nice and so gracious and just he came off as a really good guy. Whenever he was on Johnny Carson or talk shows or whatever, he was just this really pleasant guy. Yeah. So that's my memory of him, other than, watching the knockout highlights, which are scary.
And what an entrepreneur too.
Yeah.
Yeah. He took an idea and seized it and made it his own, made millions off of that thing.
He did. In part because people loved him. He's just such a good guy.
Yeah.
Now, also, one other memory is that I think he named all of his boys, 6 or 7 of them.
George.
Mm-hmm. He named them George.
Character.
I think it's great.
The story with the fight in Zaire is unbelievable with Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
People thought he was going to destroy Ali. Ali did famously the rope-a-dope.
I remember that.
Foreman punched himself out. Foreman found God shortly afterwards, became a preacher basically the rest of his life. Seemed like a very nice guy, nice man. I believe he died with a net value in excess of $300 million apparently.
Oh.
Wow, it was right.
He managed everything very well.
He made a lot of money.
Good for him.
This guy returned to boxing in his 40s and started knocking people out again. And then he had every old man in the bar, including me, rooting for him to knock out the kids, basically.
Yes, exactly.
And I would look at people and say, don't fuck with me.
We start believing in ourselves again. We see this.
Yeah, exactly. He won the heavyweight championship either at 44 or 45 years old.
That's right, yeah. Forgot about that.
Listen, Barry, thank you very much. We're obviously going to have you again because there are many more questions I want to ask you, including economic data and hiding numbers by the
BLS,
with job reports and things like that, GDP numbers.
That's a good subject. I'd love to come back on it. And guys, thanks for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
The Risk Reward Show is a co-production of Angry MetaTraders and Leitmotiv Press. It is produced by Scott Summer and Robert Petrucci and engineered by Scott Summer and Sagi Nizri. Music is by All Good Folks, a group of composers based in London that you should definitely check out. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts, as we're everywhere, like the gods we are.